another edition of MOE Conversations, where we discuss important topics in the education sector. My name is Nian Gasudori, Minister of Education, and I'm happy to be here with you today to discuss a very interesting topic, very topical right now, virtual learning, theory, practical, and administration. And to help us discuss this issue, I have three wonderful guests with me today. And we have Dr. Semper Scott, we have Mr. Kerwin Springer, and we have Mrs. Precious Piper Derrick. And Dr. Scott is actually joining us virtually today. So we're speaking about virtual learning, and we have a literal example of what it means in this time. Dr. Scott, nice to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. And we're going to start our conversation with you. We are speaking about virtual learning. We are speaking about a new paradigm in education. And we were forced, like the rest of the world, to adjust to this new change in Trinidad and Tobago, and it hasn't been without its challenges. But from an administration point of view, what would you say are the critical factors for success and effective teaching in this virtual landscape?
Great question, Minister. So I would say I would start with three places. One certainly is clarity within the institution, the school, the Ministry of Education, whichever system, whoever is the decision maker. Clarity on what you want to accomplish with online learning, virtual learning. If you want truly to embrace and leverage the power of online learning, then you would ensure that your teachers have had the necessary professional development, instructional design, so that what you get is real online learning. That is the use of the technology to develop the creation of new ideas, new thought, all of those critical thinking skills, as opposed to using your standard face-to-face drill and practice methods, but just delivering it via the technology. The two are very different, and the two result in very different ends. So that would be the first thing in terms of get clarity on your mission and what your outcomes are going to be. The second thing, which is the follow-up to that, then, is from an administrative perspective, identify your high-performing teachers. Who are the ones who are actually skilled at doing it, who can do it well, and who can then model for others how it is to be done. You have to start somewhere. And so the third part of that would be getting clarity, again, from a clinical supervisor, administrative perspective. What are the basic proficiencies from a teaching perspective? Everybody should know how to turn it on. Everybody should know how to upload stuff. Okay, beyond that, how do we take it to the next level? There's got to be clarity on the levels of professional proficiency that you need in your staff in order to be effective in the virtual learning. So that's the staff side. The other side of the administrative equation is going to be the parents. You have to engage the parents. I come to this from a change management perspective. This is change management on steroids. And so if you forget to engage your parents, because they are part of the equation, forgetting them is not helpful. So some of the engagement with them would require basic awareness of what is and what is not, how it's different, and then where possible, when necessary, equipping them with some of the basic skills to help them monitor and encourage and support the children. So those would be three places I see. What's your goal? Your professional proficiencies and competencies, and then the engagement with the parents and caregivers.
So you're speaking clarity of purpose, you're speaking training for teachers, you're speaking ensuring that parents are a part of that equation.
Yes.
Now, with this being thrust upon the world as it is, in getting all of those factors into a system, how have administrators, because we're speaking especially from that aspect, it's easy to understand what teachers do, easy to understand what students have to put up with, but from the administrative side, from the side that needs to guide the vision and to guide the progress, what are some of the biggest challenges that face administrators as they try to get that effective system of online learning taking place right now?
I would say one of the biggest, and it is not unique to Trinidad and Tobago or the Caribbean, it is perhaps global, so you can breathe a sigh of relief there. One of the biggest challenges is that, no offense, our administrators, no offense, were old school. They were raised in the classroom. They were raised with a certain approach to learning. And so having to make that shift from an administrative perspective means that they have to quickly buy into the validity of online learning, how it is different, how it is unique, and the upskilling that's required. So part of your problem as the minister and as the leadership is ensuring that your administrators understand and are sold. And if they don't understand, they need a mentor, a partner. You may have to establish, and what I try to recommend is communities of practice, so that a group of people, pretty much critical mass cohort, working together, understanding how we do this. What you can't have is individual 1 and 2 off doing it their way, and individual 3 and 4 doing it their way. It's not going to be helpful to the cause. So I would say the greatest challenge is having administrators who understand, not just cerebrally, oh yes, technology is great, but they have clarity in terms of what it means for them, what it means for their role as the administrator in the game. And for them, it is a change management process again. And so that would be the twofold thing: buy-in, making sure that they are bought in, and how they are equipped to handle change and change management. Because as I said, this is change on steroids.
Well, Dr. Semple-Scott, you kind of segued into my next question, because what I wanted to ask, it's great, because we are going along the trend of understanding what we need, understanding what the challenges are. And now, what I wanted to ask you is, how can the ministry, from the ministry's perspective, from the policy-making perspective, what can we do to better support administrators as they go through this change management process, as they get on board? What can we do to really get that level of buy-in that will allow them to now exemplify what is needed and to guide the teachers and the school and the students along in that way?
She saved the hot question for last. Okay. So I would say what the ministry can do is the ministry itself, the personnel who are tasked with making decisions and the persons who are tasked with effecting the decisions, you all need to do your own change management, because change comes with emotions. I understand the pressure cooker of everybody want it fixed now. It can't be done now. So we have to have agreement within the ministry that this is the process, these are the phases, these are the measures of success at each phase. And then you have to have somebody like, no offense, when it's carnival, move along please, move along please. You have to have somebody who's going to work with each band of people that's at a certain level. No, you don't want any administrator left behind, you don't want any school left behind. So I would say from a ministry perspective, identifying people within your team who are already skilled at or predisposed to be good at change management. You're looking for dispositions that are not just going to fly off, but they're going to be patient and encouraging and supportive. And then, of course, you need the systems thinkers within your group to see how the pieces fit together. It is not a race. This is a marathon. And so you have to take each lap with a level of clarity. I think you're off to a great start, but everybody got pushed in at the same time. Now that we've had a chance to breathe, identify who are your high performers from a change management, a leadership perspective, who are the people within the communities of practice and within the ministry who have credibility. And I don't just mean position credibility, but practical credibility, dispositional credibility that people will want to work with, because this is anxiety inducing, and you don't need anybody representing the ministry who adds anxiety to an already anxious situation.
You can see why Dr. Semple-Scott was very involved in our national consultation, because the wealth of knowledge and information and experience is certainly coming out with respect to what you say in terms of not being anxious. This is not a race, it's a marathon. It will take time. And I think that is one of the most important things that we have to consider. This is not something that was predicted. It's something that will take time to get adjusted to. And Dr. Semper Scott, you would have raised the issue of parents and the importance of their buy-in and their influence. And we have a parent with us here, Mrs. Precious Piper Derrick.
Yes.
And so she has been, from that aspect, experiencing what this virtual learning, what this home-based learning has been all about.
Yes.
And so we're glad to have her
Thank
to
you.
add her perspective to all of this. Ms. Piper Scott, what is the main concern of parents? Now, I'm a parent, so I can say what my concern is, but I'm also on the inside. From being a parent, having to deal with children at home learning, and I think you have 2 children at different levels.
Yes.
What are your main challenges with respect to virtual learning?
I think being thrust into any new experience, you have your reservations about it. Initially, we didn't know how long it would last. We didn't expect it to last this long. So you just thought, okay, fine, we'll just do this for a while and then we'll be back out. And as a parent, you always want what's best for your child. So I think the main concern for us right now is my child getting the same level of education they were getting in school, face-to-face? Because when you're online, it's limited as to what you could do. Not only educationally, but I think that school is a holistic environment. So they're losing out on that aspect. Also, as a parent, you want to know how your child is progressing. And I think it's very hard to assess children online because everyone adapts differently and you can't properly assess them because you have all sorts of factors that will come into it because there's only so much you can do. And for me also as a parent, I have a child in ECCE. And a simple thing as having to write in his books. Now you're typing on a computer to do an answer. You're no longer writing. Right. So all those skills that you would have gotten in physical school, it's limited now that we're online.
So those are some of the same anxieties I can tell you that I share because you wonder, are they actually learning?
Yes.
And I can share with you and with everyone that I spoke to my daughter who is in university. I have 1 in university, 2 in high school. And I asked her, how do you feel? And she said, I don't know if I'm learning anything. I said, you don't know if you're learning anything. I said, so when you do exams, what do you have to do? She said, we have to look in the book, we have to research because the questions are not easy to answer. You have to, I said, so what are you learning? What are you actually learning? She said, well, maybe I'm learning how to find answers. I said, so, the whole concept of what you're doing suddenly seems to be a different thing.
Yes.
What the skills they are getting are different because, as you say, they're no longer doing penmanship with their hands, but they are learning how to type. And that is an important skill in today's world as well. Let's speak a little bit about how their mental adjustment has been. And as we know, we've had quite a number of students reporting, feeling distant from their friends, feeling alone, feeling that they're not, getting that holistic immersion in their experience. How are your children adjusting mentally?
Mental health is such a taboo topic, and I think that we need to discuss it more at all levels. For my kids specifically, I don't ever pressure them. It's open communication between both of us. My older son, I always tell him, I said, if you think you need a day off today, we are taking a day off today. You will close that laptop and we're not doing anything. We will chill. If you want to go outside, jump in a trampoline, whatever you want to do, that's what we're doing. Because you have to remember, this is not only adjustment for us, but it's an adjustment for them. And they are kids. They don't understand the full scope of it. And school offers them time to interact with their peers. Who are they interacting with now? Luckily, my kids have siblings. They have cousins. But for those who don't have, when are they getting a break? Because you're on the laptop, you're seeing your friends, but you can't physically be there with them. In their school, they allow them to Zoom parties once or twice a month. And I think that gives them a little space to kind of release and be and talk to their friends and so forth. But I think as a parent, you need to pay attention to when your child needs a break. It's not only weekends, it's not only vacations. Sometimes they may just wake up and they can't cope today and it's new for them, and give them a break. Don't pressure your children. Don't.
And I'm going to come back to this topic of understanding when your child needs a break, because we need to speak about the issue of what is enough on the online environment. Because without parents having an understanding, and Dr. Scott, it comes back to your point about parents being a part of the equation. If a parent doesn't understand what online learning looks like, it can very easily look like too much,
Yeah.
or it can very easily look like not enough. And that's one of the main issues we are having, because some parents are saying, my child is not getting anything. But they don't understand the difference between how online learning takes place and what they are accustomed to their paradigm in the built school. So I'm going to address that issue just a little bit as I come to Kevin, and I'm going to ask one more question of you. Social media. Our children are now on their phones. Many of them are using their phones for learning. Many of them are on their laptops and so on. So we can no longer say, put away your phone or don't open your laptop during school.
Yeah.
Right.
That's now a whole different paradigm. How do you keep connected with social media and what's happening on social media? We had the very, very tragic, and once again I give condolences to the family, situation where a 9-year-old child, following a TikTok challenge, lost his life in Trinidad and Tobago. And as a ministry, we would have published quite a number of the TikTok challenges that are popular now. And we saw that people were very anxious for that information. How do you as a parent, keep tabs on what kind of social media your child is exposed to and what are these challenges and so on?
I think as a parent, you need to create a safe space for your child. Nobody else can do that but you. That parent-child relationship is so important. And I also think as parents, we need to do our own research because there are a lot of tools where you could restrict a lot of content for your children. YouTube has restrictions, TikTok has restrictions. And as a parent, you need to pay attention. I cannot stress enough how important it is to pay attention. Don't just leave them unattended, watching stuff whole day. You have to, I love checking search history. So at the end of the day, I am going on the search history and I'm seeing if you were trying to be on YouTube during class, and there are serious repercussions for that. So you need to make sure and create a safe space where your child can have dialogue with you and say, I saw this, what is this about? Don't ever make them feel like you can't talk to me about this or what you're doing is wrong. And you as a parent, you need to also be in tune with the technology, because we just sit back and there's so many things these children are doing. Some things I see my son doing and I'm like, how did you even figure that out? You have to do your own research and get up to the times, because they are progressing and you don't want to be left behind, because that's where the problem starts.
So do you think that the Ministry of Education has a role, a new one maybe, in, as you did with the TikTok, exposing maybe some of this to parents, maybe doing some courses and, kind of showing them how to use these restrictions, how to restrict TikTok, how to do these different things. Would this be something, I see Dr. Semford shaking her head vehemently, yes.
I think tutorials will definitely help, because some parents don't know how to turn on the restrictions on YouTube, or they don't know how to restrict a browser, or they know how to check search. They don't even know how to check search history. And search history is so important because you actually see everything that they've been doing. So I think that is important, because some parents may not have even known what was a TikTok prior to that unfortunate incident that happened. So that is definitely something that could be implemented.
So therefore, this transformation that's taking place in education, it's not just for the children, it's not just for the teachers, it's not just for the administrators, it's also for the parents and for everyone that has any kind of influence or supervisory function with a child. It might be an auntie, the child might be at home with you, especially in these times, parents might be out, you might be the one supervising. You also have to be aware of what's out there, what's happening. So it means that all of us have to just come to a new level and a new paradigm of operation with respect to how we just live our daily lives. So important now. So, Kerwin.
Yes.
Let me bring you into this discussion. I'm going to put you in the hot seat immediately with this discussion about online teaching and what role you think parents need to play and how they need to be educated as well, because you are a teacher, but you also have an online platform, very successful. And what role should parents play? Should parents know and understand the difference between what they're accustomed to with teaching in the classroom and what online teaching is, and how important is that knowledge for parents?
100%. parents should be fully involved, fully in the know. One of the number one calls I get from parents, I have online school as well, is the amount of time their students are in the classes, they want them to be in it more.
Yes.
And I have to keep
Yes.
letting them know that 1 hour in an online class is like 10 years for a normal class. Last night I had a maths class and I taught cumulative frequency. And after the class, I am telling the class, we did this in 1 hour. You know how long this takes me to teach a normal class? This takes me 4 hours. So if I attempted to drag out this class for 2 hours, you all would feel like I'm dragging you all across the hills in the class. So parents need to get an understanding of like the different dynamics of the online class and also the different dangers. Now, as an online teacher who has been very successful in the online environment and social media, I fully embrace social media as a teacher. So I hear TikTok is the thing. I sit down and watch TikTok and try to understand why these children dancing on a phone so exciting to these students. And I joined TikTok, and now I'm the biggest teacher on TikTok, 18,000 followers in 1 month. So I create my videos, and TikTok is just this amazing platform that can be utilized as well. So we put out a video on a calculator, 160,000 students view that video. You put out a video on a calculator on Facebook, 0 students view that video. So you just kind of need to know the difference between the social media. And to come back to your question, parents need to be aware of this as well. And I guess the only way that could be done is through tutorials and stuff like that.
So there's a definite need and a call for parents to be a lot more engaged and for education to be to move beyond the students now to the parents, because they're such an important part of that triangle. Kerwin, how do you gauge if your online class has been successful? You know, we hear about so many classes going on, children sleeping,
Right.
you know, they log in at the start of the class. I'm sure every parent knows what this is like. You know, when you check back, 20 minutes later, the child is sleeping, the poor teacher is going on. And how do you gauge that your class is successful? What are the indicators of a successful online class for you?
Hey, one of the decisions we had to make was whether to have cameras on or not. So we decided to go without cameras on. So there's 0 feedback visually.
Right.
So when we hire teachers, we tell them the number one thing is feedback. You need to literally be on your knees begging for feedback every second. You all understand this? Y is in the chat. That's something I say. If you understand it, just type Y, a 0 resistance thing to just type Y if you understand. And then online learning requires a lot of assignments. And this is where we have a problem with the length of the assignments and the volume of the assignments and deadlines. So imagine I, as an adult, completely hate living deadline, and these students have 12, sometimes 20 different little deadlines, 11:59, and it plays a toll on them. So there's a balance you need to strike between leveraging the full power of online and quick quizzes, quick little no-effort things to just get that feedback and to know whether it's been successful, to really gauge the student.
So you have been dealing with students who are doing terminal examinations, CSEC, CAPE, and all of that, right?
CAPE, yeah.
And I can tell you I have a Form 5 daughter, so I am also in the anxious parent zone.
Right.
Because, you know, you want to be sure that they're learning. You want to be sure that they're engaged. You want to be sure that when it comes to their examinations, they can perform well. And you have been one who's been on the online platform and had successful results in terminal examinations. So the question is, what can you say to parents who may feel that, you know, the online learning is not effective, it's not going to work? What can you say to reassure parents and to give them a sense of assurance that they can learn online and they can be effective and they still can pass their exams at the end?
All right, well, every new thing has some friction, has some pushback. It's long overdue. I have been completely saying that the education industry is way behind and it's going to get shake up, and COVID-19 just accelerated as a catalyst to that. So that's one way to look at it. to encourage the parents. However, the proof is there. The students that I teach, I taught students, and they place first in the Caribbean, first in the country, first in Guyana, first in Trinidad, Barbados. So, and I only taught them online. So it is there, it can be done. Once done correctly, it can be done. It can also be way less effort than physical. In fact, once students catch a really nice groove, some of them love it. They love the online learning. They are in charge of their own pace. They are in charge of their own learning. So I would encourage parents by showing them evidence
Right.
and showing them where they can fix the little concerns and loopholes they have.
So as we're looking at the online learning, we are looking at it from the administration part of it, from being a parent and having to deal with it at home, and from someone who's been practicing this even before the COVID time, and so now really you've got your groove because this is what it has turned out to be. And we are hearing from you that the Ministry of Education now has a bigger role in terms of educating not just the children, but also the parents as we look at this whole aspect. So we spoke about the fact that parents need to also understand what online learning looks like. You gave a metric there, 1 hour on online can be 4 hours face-to-face.
Right.
And so that needs to be understood as well. I want to approach the aspect of screen time, because that's one of the things too that is very important, and it's not just tiring on the eyes, but it feels tiring on your entire body. And so we have some parents who are demanding that their child be online on screen for 6 hours of the day. We have some parents who are saying no, they don't want any screen time at all. What is the advice, and I want to take it from each of you, with respect to screen time and the effect that you see it's having on our children, and what would you, from an administrator point of view, from a parent point of view, from a teacher's point of view, how would you advise about this issue of screen time? We know there are the health protocols and the health guidelines, but what would you advise parents and so on, teachers, administrators, in terms of that screen time issue?
That's tough, because to me, the main draining of the energy comes with the social media use, not so much with the online class. I actually believe that the energy of the student is drained when they're on Instagram continuously long, when they're on Facebook long. So I think that, coupled with the learning, they just totally wiped out, and it's addictive. So it's tough to fight. I think the onus is on the parents and the teachers to create an environment that whatever they are feeding to online, even if it's draining them, at least it's exciting them. It's exciting them. So the way I bring across the lesson, and the people they follow on Instagram, the interactions they make on whatever social media network they are on, it should be positive.
Interesting
instead
concept.
of negative. Yes.
So it may just be that they have a lot of screen time, may not necessarily be on the online, and you have to be careful to reserve then their screen time for online. So
Yes,
that's from your point of view. Precious, what do you think in terms of your children, how you deal with that screen time issue?
I think it varies from age to age, because for my 5-year-old, I don't expect them to be in online school every day. At this time, they usually do 2 days online for about an hour. My 9-year-old, who's in standard 3, he has classes every day. They have their 1 hour lunch break. And for me, I appreciate that, because when we go back out to school, I want him to still be in this pattern of, we have this morning session, we have a break, we have this session, we have a break. So I think they're trying to keep them in the same groove and not pull them entirely away, because they still have morning assembly and so forth. For me, in my house, Monday to Friday, Monday to Thursday, we're not doing the games and stuff. That's reserved for the weekend. And I think it's always good to set boundaries and ensure that you know when, now it's school time, you're not in physical school, you're online, but it's still school time. When the evening time comes, you pick up a book and read, or you relax yourself, you take a run, you do something. Friday to Sunday morning, you have your screen time, you do what you want to do. big up yourself. But I also think as a parent, you always need to set boundaries and you have to pay attention to everything your child is doing. And I would advise every parent to get a pair of Blu-ray glasses. If you can, for your child, I think it's like $40. It helps with their eyes because you don't want them just staying at the screen all day and then you have bigger problems in the long run.
Okay, all right. And Dr. Semper-Scott, let me bring you back into the discussion from an administrator point of view, because you've been hearing from stakeholders on both sides of the coin. Principals, we are hearing from principals that there are some teachers who want to do no screen time at all, who want to do no Zoom and that kind of thing. And we're hearing from the teacher side that some principals are requiring them to stay on for a certain amount of hours every single day. And so we're getting that. From an administrative point of view, how do we deal with that? How do we handle that? How do we guide in terms of making some policy decisions on that?
Good question. So I will say, because I am speaking to the Minister of Education, I will say this to you. The behind the scenes, as Mr. Springer talked about, is the design of the course. I come to this as an instructional designer, and I designed instruction for University of Maryland, where they were doing primarily online and distance learning. The design of the course is critical. You do not have to design a course such that the student should be sitting in front of the screen. That is completely contrary to the point of online learning. So the fix starts with the design of the course. The Ministry of Education has to get clear with the teachers, with the administrators. This is what sound instructional design for online learning entails. And when I've worked with teachers, I have said, you save your screen time for the most important things. We should not be sitting here repeating the multiplication tables. That should be done in the asynchronous time. When we come together here, what should be happening? Third standard maths, the teacher should say, listen, we are going to develop a playing field. We want to make it large enough to have 15 rows with 25 children. How is the best way to do that? Is 15 by 25 doable given the space? All of that is a word problem. Application of measurement, application of how to calculate area, long division, multiplication. So use your screen time judiciously. We should not be sitting at the screen spelling 3-letter words. That is what your asynchronous time is for. And if we teach the parents how the asynchronous time supports the synchronous time, you now have a different partnership. We spend less time glaring at the screen. And the other piece that we haven't spoken about that we have to address in there with parents is the whole point of the learning is for the child to become independent. So I don't need you sitting there feeding him the answers.
Oh gosh.
Because when I give him the SEA exam or when he gets to CSEC, there will be no one there to whisper the exam answers. So really it is a learning process for the teacher, the parent, the administrator. Established with clarity what sound design looks like so that people are clear. No one should be staring at the screen for 6 hours. Even with the glasses, even with the 1 hour break. It's not good for the body. And after a certain point, the brain is not taking in anything. And so that's why you will hear the children say, I'm not learning anything. Yeah, because after a certain point, it's like filling a glass with water. When the glass is full, the water just spilling over. The brain is a muscle. It can only take but so much, and we have to treat it gently. So I would say from an administrator's perspective, from the ministry's perspective, get clarity. You don't want to be rigid and say it's only this, but ensure that people are clear on what the parameters are for sound teaching and learning online. It should not exceed X. And no teacher should then be running to their principal and saying, but I don't agree with that. I think my class need. No, this is the established bar. It's from here to here. Figure out how you will use your 45 minutes judiciously. You don't get any more than that.
So we've spoken about the issue of change management that everyone has to now go through. We have spoken up to the fact that the education has gone past only our students, has to involve our parents now because they are an equally important part of this triangle, and we don't know for how long because the situation is so uncertain. We have spoken about the fact that parents now have to be a bigger part of the life of our children, not just physically, but also virtually, because that's critical.
Yes.
We've spoken about the importance of parents, teachers, and administrators understanding what online instruction looks like, what virtual teaching and learning should look like, and therefore to all be on the same page so that the expectations are similar across the board. And so we can return to the point where clinical supervision is done in a way that highlights some of the issues that may need to be dealt with at the policy level, at the curriculum level. I can tell you as well that even as we speak about the national consultation and what comes out, the skills, as we have discussed, have become different. Your children have to learn to type. So
Yes.
all of these things have become very, very different in a virtual world thrust upon us. But as Kerwin said, coming for a long time, and COVID has just really cemented its arrival. So this is where we are, and we are in the midst of it, doing the work while we are learning, all of us learning as well, and ensuring that we move forward together. The ministry has a role to play in ensuring that our teachers are well trained. That's critical. In ensuring that our parents are exposed, that our children as well develop some of the skills that they need, because we don't want our children, yes, they are very adaptive and they get these skills along the way, but there are some specific things that we need to teach them for efficiency's sake, because it's about efficiency. We don't want them fishing around all the time. So there's a lot for us all to take in, and I want to thank Kerwin and Precious and Dr. Semper Scott for joining us today and highlighting these issues, because as we move along in this virtual learning paradigm, I think it's clear to everyone that we are all learning together. Administrators, parents, teachers, and of course, all of us are here to support our most valuable resource, our students. So thank you so very much for joining us. Thank you for expressing your points of view. And I trust that as we all go along on this learning paradigm, we will do it together, and in so doing, we will truly transform education. Thank you so much for joining us. This has been MOE Conversations.